be ceased.
Well, with the changes that we keep hearing about and the new Medicare, new healthcare program that Congress just passed, it seems that probably we should do all we can to protect ourselves going forward. And long-term care, I think, kind of falls into that category. Long-term care can be pretty expensive, but when is a good time for an individual to start looking and thinking about long-term care, and how can that help protect them during their later years in life?
I would say, that's very important that we make sure that we put number 3, long-term care, on the list, because it used to be, Harry, that I'm not going into a nursing home. Don't ever put me in a nursing home. I'll take a revolver, and I'll take care of it. And the answer is no, okay? It's changed. Things have evolved in the industry. Now if something happens, you can get care, not just for the nursing home. They have adult daycare, they have rehabilitation care, they have home health care. It's all together. So if your children are not in the same state, you can purchase a policy that will continue to bring people into your house, giving you the independency that you're looking for. But I would say probably start somewhere in your 50s, because the cheaper that you decide at your age to start pursuing long-term care, the better. Because if you start to get long-term care at 85 versus 50, the companies are realizing, based on mortality rates and how long they're going to be on the hook to pay for a claim, they're going to make sure that they adjust the premium accordingly. So getting long-term care at an early age is something that's important, so that it's not going to be that expensive as opposed to when you're older. Now, for the people out there that are older, we've always heard, oh man, long-term care is ridiculous, it's going to bankrupt me. Not necessarily so. There's a lot of moving parts to long-term care insurance. And one of the things we have to deal with that is agents that sell long-term care insurance are going to try to sell the highest premium they can, obviously, because they make the highest commission. One of the things you want to do is you want to go to somebody and you want them to, before they talk about product, explain what is involved with buying a nursing home or home health care policy, and what are all the moving parts and what makes something expensive. Example, I could drive a Beamer, or I can drive a station wagon, or I can drive a Volkswagen. Now I'm still going to get to where I need to go in a Volkswagen. Station wagon, I can put a little more people in there. And a BMW, while I'm driving people, I can listen to some pretty cool music, depending upon what the sound system is. I'm still going to get to where I have to go. So we don't necessarily have to buy the Beamer in order to have insurance. It's based on bells and whistles. And so one of the things that I tell people is make sure that you have somebody that educates you. And actually, there's a guide that goes out called the LTC guide that you should just ask the agent, could I please see the LTC guide that was put out by, the state of Ohio, which has all the important questions, what to look for in an LTC policy, home health care. What are the areas of concern that I should be looking for? And if you have a long-term care on your checklist, get a second opinion, get to someone. I do seminars at Retirement First every Tuesday, the first Tuesday of every month. And the whole idea is designed so that I can go into those sessions and educate people and tell the people, the things that they're not getting. They're mostly getting products and brochures, and anyone can make a nice glossy brochure. But if we educate the people out there and we teach the people, what are the parts that are so important and critical to putting together a good long-term care. I mean, how many people have went to seminars and been scared, because the premium comes, yay, that's it, game over, okay? And it doesn't have to be that way. There are very important things to long-term care insurance that can help you. Again, you can call Retirement First at 1-800-82-FIRST anytime you'd like. We have set up the videos, okay, pertaining to what we're doing now. We make sure we have videos on all the subjects. We have subjects on Medicare. We have subjects on Medicaid. We have subjects on the stock market. We have subjects on bonds. We have subjects on all the areas that are important. Now you can sit in the privacy of your own home, turn me off if I talk too fast, put me on pause, rewind me, fast forward, pretty much the perfect husband, really. You can pretty much do what you want to do. And that's important to get the information that you're looking for. So on that, if you have long-term care insurance, maybe call up your company and ask them, does my policy protect me from the Deficit Reduction Act? Is it long enough to cover the 60 months to where you'll pay the premium for 5 years and possibly give me the ability to transfer my money to my kids if I know that there's a prevailing illness that's going to be something serious, okay, to protect me. So I would basically say make sure you do your due diligence.
Very good. Well, the other thing that I think a lot of people will be thinking about and wanting to ask when they sit down with an advisor is, what if I want to continue to keep working after retirement? I'm ready to retire. I don't want to work full time. Maybe I'd like to do some part-time work. What's the tax implications? And I think those are things that people don't totally understand and certainly want to get information when they sit down to talk about their retirement.
Well, I actually had a seminar, and it was amazing because I had a lot of people in there that were 52, 53, 54, 55. And one of the number one questions I asked the people is I said, are you aware that if you hit a certain adjusted gross income as a husband and wife, that taxes will be involved on your Social Security? Woo! What? Social Security is free. There's no tax on Social Security. And I said, yes, there is. And people are not aware when they're close to retirement and maybe they've lost a lot of money in the stock market, what the tax implications of retiring are. It can be very substantial. And one of the guidelines, and again, we have tax line guideline tables at Retirement First. You call us up, we'll be more than happy to send you information on that. But there's guidelines at a certain level, 55% of your Social Security will be taxed. At another certain level, 85% of your Social Security will be taxed, which is added to your adjusted gross income. IRAs, we all know we're taxed. We've all heard about the minimum distribution. But a lot of people have lost a lot of money in the stock market, and maybe the bulk of all their money is a 401k or is an IRA. And so for an example, I go to retire and I think I'm ready to retire, and maybe I'm 55, 65, right? Well, right away, if I'm 65, my life expectancy is going to be 85. It's a long time to go. I have a 401k, and the first thing I want to realize, I might come in a 15% tax bracket or 28% tax bracket. So if I decide to pull $40,000 out to retire, or $30,000, as soon as I pull that money out, it's 100% taxable, Harry. Mm-hmm. So now I have to say, well, if my 401k is 300 and I have it in the stock market, can I really afford to risk it in the stock market? Because 28% of the entire 401k or IRA isn't my money. Mm-hmm. It's the government's. So if I pull 28% out of my investments, out of my 401k, now that's to pay for the taxes for my income. But remember, when I'm pulling the $40,000 out, now I'm pulling more money out of the account to pay for taxes. So I'm really not pulling $40,000 out of my IRA, am I?
No, you're not.
I'm pulling a lot more out. But then next year, when I have to pull $40,000 out, I still have to pull more money out of my IRA. That's 100% taxable. But then I have to pull more money out of my IRA because I pulled 28% of my money last year for income taxes, because qualified money and IRAs and 401ks are 100% taxable. So every year I have an additional income, I'm actually pulling a 1 year behind because I'm constantly paying my taxes. Now put that into perspective and then put in tax on Social Security, and then maybe I have investments, and now I have CDs and savings accounts and checking accounts, and I get a 1099 at the end of the year. Now I've got to add that onto my adjusted gross income. In a very, very short time, I could be in a position where I could start to run out of money. One of my favorite things I try to teach people is, has the fear of dying been replaced with the fear of living too long? So that's an area that we will make sure that we would discuss with people in seminars. So if you go to a seminar, we'll kind of look for something that maybe somebody is an expert in the area of helping you for retirement, explaining all the nuts and bolts. pertaining to taxation, because it's a very big effect, and it should be on your checklist because it can really hurt you if you don't understand it.
Well, you touched on Social Security and the potential taxes that you could pay on Social Security, and Social Security certainly is going to be a major part of everybody's retirement. It's a key piece of your income when you're in retirement. Is there more information about Social Security that people should be aware of?
Yes, I think one of the biggest things that people need to realize is a lot of people just take for granted that Social Security is going to come to them, and that's not entirely true. So the one thing that you want to do is you want to do a second opinion. You want to make sure if you're close to retirement or you're not in retirement stage that you physically want to call up your Social Security, and you want them to send you, what am I eligible for? What will I receive, for Social Security at 62? What will I receive at 65 or 70? Am I eligible? Do I have enough quarters? A lot of people don't realize that they have to have so many quarters, okay, to receive Social Security. That becomes very, very important. And then a lot of people will say, well, I'm not going to take Social Security because I have an additional income. And one of the things I try to tell people is be careful with that, because if you don't take it at 62, you decide to take it at 65 or later, that like from 62 to 65, usually the average, if you give it up, it's going to take you 10 years, okay, in the difference between 62 and 65, because you say, well, I'm going to wait till I'm 65 because the monthly premium's bigger. But what about the annual Social Security you're getting? How long does it really take to make up the difference? And that's about 10 years. So because I knew that this subject was so important and having so many people in the seminar, I decided to try to make this maybe a two-part session, okay? And what that's going to be is we're just getting through your checklist. Make sure you write that checklist down, and we're going to make sure we hit that checklist and make sure you get the answers that you're looking for. And on that checklist, I think the most important thing to do is make sure that you pull out and you dust off those documents, because that's one of the things, Harry, that I found out. People's life insurance policies or their properties or their investments or certain things are kind of put in a back closet. They don't really understand how critical it is to brush those things out and kind of do a little spring cleaning, and make sure that they're aware of certain things, because all of a sudden tomorrow your husband wakes up and he has a stroke. Right. Wow, yesterday it was sunny, the birds were chirping, things were wonderful. He took care of all my financial affairs. Ow! What do I do now? I don't know what I do. Yeah. So the phone's going to ring off the hook of people that are going to be more than happy to tell you what to do. But if you get that checklist and you make sure that everything is covered, then you don't really have to worry about the tornado coming in and sweeping you off. And it doesn't have to be that way. So one of the things that I think is so important is we're going to tell you some secrets that are out there in the industry that people don't want you to know. The old situation, as you know, you get a contract, right? If I had $1 for everyone that could actually understand what a contract is, I'd be a rich man pertaining to those issues. But those are some of the subjects that I think we're going to continue with our checklist on our next show and continue with it. I think the most important things when you're doing your checklist, you want to make sure, we mentioned earlier about making sure that when you pull everything out, that your assets are titled correctly. The law is passing new IRS regulations every single day. There's a new law out now where you used to be able to write certain documents, pay to the order on death or transfer on the order on death to avoid probate. They've come out with a new law which is called letter of designation. It's something new, and you have a certain point that if you did it the old way, you're okay, but all new things effective of that thing that's going to be titled is going to be called letter of designation. And that's an area, if you don't know about letter of designation, right, and you have a loved one that dies or something happens, you're going to find out, but you're going to find out in the wrong way. So we're going to make sure we get to the correct information on titling your assets correctly in our next show. So until then, keep your ears perked. We will be back with you. I'm John Zidan, and this is my co-host, Harry Kimes. And thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day.